Hey lovely, you're welcome to day 2 of the 30 days Sew with Tia challenge. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to cut and sew this sleeveless stylish gown that has a detachable scalloped cape. Now this tutorial is beginners friendly, and this outfit is one that can help you boost your confidence. So this is a power outfit, and you can consider adding this to your wardrobe. Okay, so this is the final outlook after the tutorial. So I'm going to be talking about one or two things I would likely change if I'm to repeat this tutorial. To get started, you are going to be needing the following tools, and I'm going to be combining these materials. Now this fabric is a crepe fabric and is stretched slightly. You're also going to be needing your front gown pattern that has a bust and a waist that I uploaded a video on this yesterday, so I'm just going to be leaving the link in the description box. You have to watch that video first because we're going to be making use of that pattern to cut our gown. So here's my pattern from the tutorial, and I'm going to be explaining a few things shortly. Before then, I went ahead to show you how to draft this scalloped cape, okay? And the first thing you need to understand is how to take your round shoulder measurements. You have to take your round shoulder measurement, and whatever you have, you're going to divide by 4. In my case, I have 10.5, and you have to determine the length of your cape. So yeah, I went ahead to measure 9 inches. Okay, now if you look at that picture, the front cape length is shorter than the back cape length, so you have to bear that in mind. All right, so I'm going to be inserting my neck width measurement, which is 3 inches in this case, and I went ahead to insert the neck depth measurement, which is also 3 inches. You have to understand that your neck depth and width for this cape have to be high so that whatever you have for your sleeveless would be lower. Okay, so this is going to be my center front. This is the front part of the cape. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do at this junction is to go ahead and mark out that same 10.5 inches, which is my shoulder and shoulder measurement divided by 4. After doing that, I connected it to the top and I added 1 inch for sewing allowance. I added 1 inch, not half an inch, for sewing allowance. So after doing that, I just went ahead to trim out the excess I don't need on that pattern paper. Also, I forgot to say this initially, you have to leave 0.5 inches on the upper part because you are going to be using that to join your shoulder to each other. So now I'm going to come to this neckline. You have to determine the length you want to work with for this front cape. So here I use 5.5 inches. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead to mark that 5.5 inches. Okay, I went ahead to mark 5.5 inches. All right, now another thing you also need to indicate on this line is your shoulder measurement. That is your across shoulder measurement, which is what we use normally to draft our pattern. Across shoulder measurement indicates this, and the reason why we're indicating this is so that we're able to shape this properly. If you look at the shape in front of this cape, towards that part it has a slight shape, is a slightly different shape. So now after I've indicated that point, I went ahead to rule my 5.5 inches and I divided whatever I have by 1 inch. So you can see those dotted lines, they are 1 inch. Okay, now this particular method is not compulsory. You could do freehand if you like. I'm just trying to show you what I did to achieve my. So after I did that, I came down by 0.5 inches on that 1 inch point. I came down by 0.5 inches, and then I just went ahead with my curve ruler, the curve part of this ruler, and I'm going to be connecting that point together. Remember, we are trying to create a scalloped cape, so that is the shape I'm drawing out. So now, before you get to that 7.5 dotted line, so I'm going to be going higher by 0.5 inches. Okay, so I went higher on this part, not lower. I went higher. Then I'm going to mark I went ahead to mark out I went ahead to mark to connect that point together. So at this junction, you could just do your freehand. You really don't have to go through this step. Okay, just go through your freehand, determine the shape you want. I'm just trying to follow what I have on the tutorial. So I went ahead, okay, to make a curve at this point. So just watch closely what I went ahead to do there. So I made a curve, and that curve, I connected it to the end line. When I mean the end line, that is the straight line I have that is not dotted. That is the original line where the cape should end. So that dotted line is just a guide to tell me that I'm going to be raising that scallop design higher. I hope you understand what I explained over there. Please, if you don't, I would want you to go back, watch the video, and just try to be creative. Follow the design you have on the outfit, then go ahead to recreate yours. And it's not really compulsory you do the same thing. Okay, so this is what I have for the front design, and like I said, the front design is higher, that is 5.5 inch on the center front, and toward the side you could see that it got to the 9 inches point. Now this is because that 9 inches point must correspond to the side of the back, and that is why you can see it is on that 9 inches line. So after doing all of this and being satisfied with the result I have, I went ahead to take my time to trim this out based on the shape I want. Now, if I'm going to recreate this tutorial video again, I'm definitely going to ensure that I go higher with the length of the front. So that 5.5 inches at the end of the day for me, I felt it was too short. I'll definitely do like a 7 inches next, and probably the back would be like 10 or 11 inches. All right. Okay. So now this is what I have for the front shape. I'm going to go ahead to just draft the back, the center back now, the center back cape. Okay. So now this cape is one, if you notice, there is no armhole, nothing. It is just straight in form of a rectangle. Now you have to consider this fact. Okay. It's very, very important. So now for the back pattern, if you notice the back design of what we are working with, like I said, it is lower. So for this back pattern, I just went ahead to use my free hand to just create scallop design and ensure it matches with the front at the side of the back. Remember, we are going to be joining the two pieces together. That is why the side of the back and the side of the front has to correspond. They have to be same. And after doing that, I just went ahead to trim out the excess I don't want, the excess pattern paper, and I'm going to be laying this on my fabric to cut. And I'll be doing this off camera. But then I'm going to explain what I did when I'm back. Okay, so for this particular cape design, I made use of this navy blue. So this is a navy blue crepe material. So I made use of this navy blue material. And also I went higher for the back neckline. So instead of me to cut 3 inches like the front, I decided to do 1 inch for the back instead of the same 3 inches as in the front. Okay, so you can see that the back neck is definitely higher than the front neck. All right, so I went ahead to cut out 2 pieces each for this pattern on fold. So the front cape is cut on fold. You can see that crease line, that's the midpoint. So I went ahead to lay interfacing on it. So I just used tissue stay, a soft one, and I just attach this, I press this on it so that it's going to give it a bit of stability. So you're going to face the right side, facing right side of this particular cape front pattern. Then you're going to be sewing the neckline and the scallop detail. You're going to leave the two ends open and this shoulder slope area open. So I also went ahead for the back to cut out the back piece, and I added 0.5 inches, okay? For the back and the front pattern, I added 0.5 inches, which is going to be my sewing allowance for this pattern. So after doing that, I'm going to go ahead to sew this piece together. Then I'm going to use it to. So I think I missed one of my clip here. I'm going to explain what I did. So after um, turning this, I went ahead to press. Then as you can see, I joined both the front and the back, okay? I joined them using a straight line at the shoulder and also at the side. Now you're going to be sewing straight. You can see more like having an angle 90 at that edge. So that is what is going to give you that pointed effect. And when you're done, just trim out the excess you have. Then you can use something, probably your scissors or anything, to push that point out so that it can lay flat. Then give it a good press. So this is what the cape look like. As you can see, remember I did not add sewing allowance or zipper allowance to the cape at the back, to the back pattern. That is how it's going to be. So you will just decide whatever you want to use, probably a press button, a snap button, hook and eye, whatever you want to use to hold that down. So that is totally up to you. In my case, I made use of a snap button, and I'm going to be doing that off camera. So this is what the cape, the scallop cape look like. And this is very, very simple. You can easily make it within a short period of time. All right, so I'm going to be going to the gown part. Like I said, this gown is a sleeveless gown that has a bust that, okay? And if you look at the inspo closely, it doesn't have the waist that's sewn on it. So what we are going to do using this pattern is just to elongate that line, that's line, and we're going to be transferring the waist that to the bust that. So all I'm going to do now is to open the bust that. I'm going to be opening this bust that, as you can see. I'm going to open this, then I'm going to go ahead to cut on that straight line that leads to the waist that. So you can see I'm going to take my time to cut that line. And after doing so, you want to ensure you have your paper tape, your gum, or your sellotape, any one you have. So right now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fold that dart in. So I'm going to be folding the dart, as you can see. I'm going to fold it. Make sure you cut very close to the bust point, very, very close to the bust point, so that you can sleep well. So as you can see, when I try closing this waist that, you can see that automatically the bust that is going to open up, right? So that is what you want to do. You want to take your time to close that bust that, then hold it down with a paper tape, and you're good to go. All right, so after doing that now, the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead to place this on. I'm going to be putting another pattern paper under the bust dart first, because we are not closing this bust dart. Remember, like I said, we are sewing this bust dart. So I'm going to put another pattern paper underneath the bust dart so that we won't have any shortage on that part when we are sewing. So you can just take any piece of paper and do that in no time. Okay, also you would have to confirm your measurement again. So you can see that waist measurement. After closing the dart, I went ahead to confirm my measurement, and what I have on that waist now is my exact waist measurement. I have my exact waist measurement, and if everything you did is correct, that is what you are supposed to have, because we already added the 1 inch for waist dart to this pattern. So as you can see, I went ahead to add the extra paper. Look at the way I fold. Then I'm going to go ahead to trim the excess I don't want on this bust dart. So at the end of the day, this is what the bust dart is going to give us. So this is the new pattern we're going to be using. So I went ahead to fold my fabric into two, that is unfold for my front pattern. And as you can see, I went ahead to lay down my pattern flat. Now, okay, I went ahead to lay my pattern flat. I'm just going to work with the length I have. I'm going to be working with the length this fabric can accommodate. So just take your time and go ahead to just cut. So when I'm done cutting, I went ahead to mark out my bust dart with my chalk. So I went out to mark the dart legs and the dart points on my fabric. So I just went ahead to highlight that part with the chalk. As you can see, I don't know if you can see clearly, then I'm going to be connecting that part together so that I will be able to sew properly. So I just went ahead to notch that point so that it's going to give me same position on the other side of the fabric. So this is the amount of bust that you are going to be sewing, and you are going to be sewing this. So now what I'm going to do now is to cut the back pattern. So I'm going to be making use of this front pattern with certain changes, okay? So for this back pattern now, all you need to do in this situation is to close your bust dart. You have to close your bust dart completely. Now you have two options in this particular place. You have the option of adding a dart after closing your bust dart to the back of this pattern, or making it also dartless. When I mean dartless, you're not adding any dart to it. Now, to do this clearly, I'm just going to go ahead to trace the neckline, the neck width, the armhole region, and the waistline, the hip line, and I'm going to just impute my normal measurements in those places. So just look at what I'm going to do clearly. First of all, I left about 2 inches, which is going to be for my zipper allowance. So I went ahead to curve the armhole region. I went ahead to curve the neckline. I increased the neckline for this back pattern. So I'm going to be working with 1.5, 2 inches rather, for the back pattern. I went ahead to highlight that, and I also went ahead to highlight the zipper region. This is really, really important because we don't want our gown to have zip bulge, so we have to take out of the waist measurements in this back pattern. So you can see I've marked out my armhole, the neckline. I'm just going to go ahead, to impute my waist round measurement divided by 4 on the waistline, impute my chest measurements, okay, and my hip measurements. So it simply means this back pattern does not have any dart at all. I hope you understand that. Okay, so I went ahead to measure what I have on my hemline. Remember, this is a tapered skirt, a pencil skirt. This gown is more like a pencil gown, okay? So I'm just going to be imputing that value over there, and that is just all we need to do. Now, there's something important I'm going to explain. Remember when we're drafting this front pattern, we use 41.5 inches, excluding the hem allowance of 1 inch. So, but in this back pattern, I'm going to be making use of 40. I'm going to be making use of 40 inches, okay? Because I told you earlier that the busts, the front and the back pattern length is always different. So you have to consider this fact whenever you're drafting your pattern, your back pattern. I'm going to still make a video using a clear pattern paper on how you can draft and so how you can draft a back pattern. So after doing that, I went ahead to take 0.5 inches from the waist, and I connected that point back to the lower hem and to the neckline. So that is what you can see me do there. After which I added the allowance, and I'm just going to cut out this back pattern for us to go ahead with sewing. So after cutting, this is what my back pattern looked like. Okay, I went ahead to cut facing also for the neckline. So I'm going to be sewing this off camera. And remember, it is a sleeveless gown, so I'm going to be sewing the sleeve. I'm going to be sewing it like sleeveless. I'm going to be piping that point, and I'll be doing all of this off camera. Also, I'll go ahead to notch. Remember, we have strips of fabric on the gown pattern. So I went ahead to notch the hip part so that this is going to guide me to where I'm going to be placing those strips. So I went ahead to cut the facing for the front body, and for this particular strip that was cut, I have 1.25 inches. Okay, so this is what I'm going to use to create that strip detail. So I went higher on the hip points, so I did not start from the hip. I went higher, and this is on my left hand side. I went higher on that hip point. Okay, on my right hand side, I went higher on that hip point. Okay, about 3 inches. You could do 4 inches. This is totally up to you. Then I went lower on the hip line about 3 inches too. So you can see I'm having that slant effect. So I'm just going to go ahead to, okay, top stitch that. Then and for the lower part, I went about 12 inches lower in length, and I'm going to be sewing that across in form of horizontal line. Okay, I'm going to be sewing that across, and after doing that, this is what I have at the end of the day. You could also see I've taken time to sew in my bust darts, the neckline. I've finished that properly with a facing. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is to go ahead to place our back pattern on the front pattern. Like, we have to join them. So you can see for the back also, I added like tissue stay on that zipper region so that my zip can sit well. Okay, so and I'm going to make sure that this gown also slitted. So now the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead to join this at the shoulder, at the side, and I'm going to fix the zip on this. So after doing that, I would also make sure to turn the lower hem, and that is going to be all for the making of this sleeveless gown. So as you can see, I'm done sewing this. You can see I've been able to turn the sleeveless parts. I've been able to sew the facing in, and I'm just going ahead to shaping this gown. So you want to take your time to shaping the gown based on your bust round measurements. I'm just going to confirm all of this measurement again. I'm going to mark them, and I'm going to shape them. I'm going to shape the gown rather. So if you've enjoyed this tutorial up to this point, you've gotten value, do well to hit the subscribe button, turn on your notification bell so that when I post videos, you get to see them, and do drop a comment in the comment section. Like I said, this is a power dress. If you want something stylish, something commanding, then you should go for this. Okay, so I'm done marking. I just took out my time to shaping all of this, and after which I'm going to go over, I'll head over to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew this, and I'm going to let you see what it looks like.